Hi, welcome. Today I'm going to show you guys how to make your own block, which is equivalent to making your own function in a programming language. So we're here. I've got some initial code here that's going to set up my movement motors for my robot. And the block that I want to create is a block that basically makes it easy for me to set different amounts of turning degrees for my robot. Okay, so what is a block? Well, this is a bit of code that I might want to use over and over again. So if I've got a robot driving all around a course, I may want to make many churns. And so maybe instead of repeating a large set of code, I want to save that as a block and then just call on it with a very small part of code. So I'm going to show you how that works. So if I go here, I can select make a block. If I do select make a block, I can give it a name. So I'm going to call this one churn angle. Okay, and then I can add things to it. So churn angle right now, doesn't take any inputs. That means I can't tell it what I want. So I'm going to add this type of input. This is a number or text. In some cases, you might want to add a Boolean, which basically says like you're going to maybe use the color sensor and say the input is either true or false. If the color sensor is yellow and it's seeing yellow, that's true. If it's seeing green, that would be false, something like that. Okay, so I'm going to add this type of input, and I'm going to call this angle, and I'm going to save it. Okay, so let's see if we can use this to actually make a churn. So I learned in training camp 1 how to make a churn using my gyro sensor inside my robot hub. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so I am going to start just by waiting for a second. Okay, and then no matter what the orientation of my robot, I want to reset the yaw angle to 0. So it thinks that the angle is 0 and it can measure from 0 rather than measuring from some random angle that it happens to be set at. So that's like resetting the sensor. Okay, and then I'm going to tell my robot to do a tank churn. So that means it's basically going to churn in place and it's not going to move at all while it's churning. I'm going to select this start moving tab, and this one I'm going to be able to change this setting here. If I want to do a tank churn, I can do that to the right by setting it all the way to 100 to the right, or to the left by setting it all the way to negative 100. Again, you can experiment with what happens if you don't have this all the way at 100, and you can see how your robot moves in that case. So if I left it just like that, it would continue to rotate in place forever or until I stop the program. You can go ahead and try it out and see, but really I want it to stop. And of course, I know how to get the robot to stop moving. I can just put a stop moving command in there. But how do I get it to stop moving at the right place? Well, I'm going to make the code wait until something is true before it continues. So if I look down in here in my control, this basically means that the program won't go beyond this wait until block until something becomes true, and then it will stop moving. So what do I want to become true? Well, I want it to churn a certain amount. I already set my yaw angle to 0. So now when it starts moving, the yaw angle will change from 0 based on how far it's rotated. So I can actually go down here and use the inequalities to say, hey, as soon as the yaw angle gets bigger than a particular amount, say 50 degrees, let's go ahead and stop. Okay, so again, this is a little bit higher level. You want to be able to notice again that certain things only fit into this slot. So now I am trying to find the right kind of thing. This is my gyro sensor icon. This thing I can change to be the kind of angle that I want to measure. So instead of measuring the roll or the pitch of my robot, I do want to measure that yaw angle. I'm going to slide that in there. Okay, and when this runs, right, it will stop moving once my angle churns 50 degrees. So let's go ahead and call that particular function. So I can call the function here. I'm going to put just any number in here because I'm going to show you what that does later. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and send this code to my robot, and let's see what it does. Okay, when I sent that code to my robot, I can't show you, but it did churn 50 degrees, okay? So what's the advantage of doing this? Let's say I wanted to churn 50 degrees again, okay? And I'm just gonna put a random number in here. I'm gonna show you what that does in a second, okay? I'll put a wait thing in between those, actually. Let's see. We'll just do wait 1 second, and let's go ahead and send it. Okay, now the robot churned 50 degrees, it waited 1 second, and it churned 50 degrees again. So that's kind of silly though. Every time my robot churns 50 degrees, how can I make this more flexible so I can easily toggle these numbers and get my robot to churn a different number of degrees? Well, notice up here, there's an input variable in my block here called angle. And I can actually drag and drop this into this setting here. So now instead of defaulting to 50 degrees every time, whatever I input into my angle variable, that's the amount of degrees that it will churn. So I can test that out. I'm going to start with 25 degrees, and then I'm going to have my robot churn 30 degrees. Let's see what it does. Okay, that was kind of subtle. I'm going to make it churn 90 degrees, and let's see what it does. Okay, so when I did that, the robot started churning 25 degrees, it waited 1 second, and then it churned 90 degrees. So here you can see I can easily change how much it churns based on the number I put in. Here's a challenge to extend this project. Notice that every time I churned, my robot moved right, okay? And it did a tank churn right. Can you change this function so that the robot either moves right or left, depending on what number I put in here, maybe a positive or a negative number, using some of the control statements over here?